Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Today we're looking at some more cards which are supporting the Blue Eyes structure deck for SD47. First card is Kaiser Seahorse. It's a level 4 light attribute dragon type tuner effect monster with 1700 attack and 1650 defense. You can only use the first, second and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. 1. If you control a Blue Eyes white dragon, you can special summon this card from your hand. 2. You can target one light tuner you control, increase or decrease its level by 1. 3. If this card is sent from the field to graveyard, you can send one Blue Eyes monster or one monster that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to graveyard except Kaiser Seahorse. This is based on the original version of Kaiser Seahorse. That monster was it's the same kind of stats. Its effect was, it was one of the attribute summoners, so if you wanted to bring out a light attribute monster, you could use it as both the tribute summons for the summoning of that card, which is why it worked within a Blue Eyes White Dragon deck, as Blue Eyes White Dragon's a level 8 monster. Similar to other things like the Angler monster, which is for water attributes, you've got Whirlwind Prodigy, which is for wind attributes, you've got equivalents to all of the other attributes. The first bit of the effect, just so long as you've got a Blue Eyes White Dragon on your field, you get to instantly special summon this card. Second ability is to adjust the levels of a light tuner monster you control by 1. It can either increase or decrease, but it doesn't have to be specifically a Blue Eyes style of card, it's just a light attribute tuner. So you can go for any of them, but also consider that the ones existing already in the Blue Eyes deck are level 1, so you can't reduce that to a level 0. It would have to be increased to a level 2, which isn't bad as you do have quite decent monsters that can be synchro summoned through those types of abilities. Adjusting levels means you've got more scale to run a variety of synchro monsters without being too linear and too predictable. Let's see if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, so that's by any means. So long as it's sent to the graveyard, it's fine. It could be kaiser, it could be just sent there by battle or by any sort of effect. You're able to send a Blue Eyes monster or one monster that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to graveyard, except another copy of itself. This can help you to set up things such as the Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, as that can be revived from the graveyard, or through other effects which, when they're sent to the graveyard, can recover through their graveyard-based effects. Majesty with Dragons of White is a normal trap card. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name once each per turn. 1. Show up to 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons from your hand, face up field and graveyard, then destroy that many cards your opponent controls. 2. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Ritual summon one ritual monster from your hand by attributing Blue Eyes White Dragons from your hand or field, whose total levels exactly equal the level of that ritual monster. First ability of this card lets you show up to 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, and they can be from the hand, the field, and or graveyard, so you've got 3 areas that you can choose, and you can just straight away destroy that many cards your opponent controls, no questions asked. So long as you can reveal them, you can do this. Second ability means you don't actually have to run the ritual-based spell cards, which is sometimes a bit of a nuisance as that can clog up the deck. And since this is kind of a double utility-based card, and it can be used on the same turn as you use the first effect, it's not an issue. Spirit with Eyes of Blue is a light attribute dragon type link effect monster. It's a link 1 with 300 attack and its point at the bottom left. It requires a level 4 or lower dragon or spellcaster monster. You can only use the first and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. 1. If this card is link summoned, you can take one Mausoleum of White from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. 2. You cannot special summon except dragon monsters. 3. You contribute this card, special summon one Blue Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard, but if you special summon enough monster from the graveyard, it cannot attack, also its effects are negated. With the summoning conditions on this card, it just needs a level 4 or lower dragon or spellcaster monster. I've heard some people discuss about the utility with cards such as Effect Veiler, because in the past, Effect Veiler, if that's in your hand and that's a dead draw, there's nothing you can really go into outside of a Link Karibo. This gives you an alternative. Mausoleum White, in order to understand what it does, we need to actually review that. Mausoleum of White is a field spell card. The effect is, during your main phase, you can normal summon one level 1 light tuner in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster you control, send one normal monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, the targeted monster gains attack or defense equal to the level of the monster sent to the graveyard times 100 until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. You can banish this card from your graveyard, add one Burst Stream of Destruction from your deck to your hand. The first part of the effect allows you an additional summon each and every turn, but it's a level 1 light tuner monster, so you're going to need to be running specific cards in order to get the most out of this effect. You can then send a normal monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and that card then gets boosted by those attack points. So with a Blue Eyes White Dragon, any monster you choose will gain an additional 800 attack points for the rest of that turn. In terms of the last bit of the ability, when this card is banished, you can add a Burst Stream of Destruction. That card is also not particularly that useful if you have a quick look at that. Burst Stream of Destruction. This is the attack used by Blue Eyes White Dragon within the anime. It's a normal spell card, and the effect is if you control Blue Eyes White Dragon, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. Blue Eyes White Dragon you control cannot attack the turn you activate this card. It's good in certain respects in that it can wipe out all of your opponent's cards, but the problem is there are so many cards out there that can prevent themselves being destroyed by card effects, and it also stops you from using the effects of your Blue Eyes White Dragons from attacking for the remainder of that turn. Therefore, with the Spirit with Eyes of Blue, it's not so advisable to use the secondary ability to pitch it to the graveyard. Better to add it to your hand, at least you get additional summons in the turn. Second ability, it locks you into dragon-type monsters. Until you get rid of this card, you're stuck with dragons, but there are so many support cards out there that that's not necessarily an issue. Third ability, just by tributing this card, you can just special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard. But if it's an effect monster from the graveyard, it cannot attack. Also, its effects are negated. That's quite useful, as you do have the chance to get a Blue Eyes monster. And even if it is an effect monster, if it's from the hand, it doesn't have the restrictions to it. It's only when it's revived from the graveyard that it cannot attack, and its effects are negated. The new support helps to extend the combos already existing within Blue Eyes White Dragon. I was surprised to see a Link monster because I don't think there is one for either the Red Eyes cards. There isn't one for Dark Magicians. Maybe that's what they're aiming to do in the future. Perhaps not. Depends on how they kind of look at those archetypes. I would like to see those happen, actually getting their own Link versions, but we're still missing a couple of monsters. Hopefully we might get an upgrade on a Link monster, not just the Link one, otherwise it might just not be worth running. I think the Neo Kaiser Seahorse is quite decent, as it does have a way of pitching cards as well as adjusting levels, and it can instantly special summon itself, but obviously the favourite has to be the trap card, just because it has that opportunity to destroy up to 3 cards controls, as well as banishing itself to act as the ritual monster. Now it says here we've got some additional cards which have been confirmed for reprints, so we'll have a quick look at what those cards do. Nibiru is a light attribute rock type level 11 with 3000 attack and 600 defense. During the main phase, if your opponent normal or special summoned 5 or more monsters this turn, as a quick effect you can tribute as many face monsters on the field as possible, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. Then special summon one Primal Being token, which is a rock light level 11 with question mark attack and defense, to your opponent's field. This token's attack and defense become the combined original attack and defense of the tributed monsters. You can only use this effect of Nibiru the Primal Being once per turn. The idea of this card is helpful to disrupt what your opponent has, as it wipes out their cards. It does leave them with quite powerful tokens in some situations, but knowing as and when to disrupt your opponent is always the key to getting the most out of this card. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring is a fire attribute zombie type tuner monster. It's a level 3 with 0 attack and 1800 defense. When a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, as a quick effect you can discard this card, negate that effect. Add a card from the deck to the hand, special summon it from the deck, or send a card from the deck graveyard. You can only use this effect of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring once per turn. It's a consistency card, and it helps to prevent your opponent from going into certain cards. It prevents them from searching for specific cards. It prevents them from special summoning from the deck. And it also prevents them from pitching cards which they can use for graveyard-based effects. Max C is a Earth attribute insect type level 2 with 500 attack and 200 defense. During either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a monster, immediately draw 1 card. You can only use 1 Max C per turn. The idea of this card is that by pitching this, either your opponent is going to stop doing what they are in combo turns when they're special summoning too much, or they're going to try and deck you out by special summoning even more times. This is a card which most people find quite frustrating to deal with, as it's just continually drawing into cards, but there are additional cards, the more charming archetype, which is a sub-archetype that draws cards as well, which is a bit more limiting and is more palatable for people. Overall, if that does come to this country, I don't think this is going to be as part of one of the reprints. It's just exclusively to most likely the Effect Veiler is a light attribute spellcaster type tuner effect monster. It's a level 1 with 0 attack and defense. During your opponent's main phase, as a quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target a 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negate the effects of that face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of this turn. This card is a decent effect, and it's a good way of disrupting whatever your opponent plans on doing, but it only works during your opponent's main phase. Therefore, once this card has been used as a discard, it's a -1 for you, and if your opponent can then get around, that's not a problem. In Japan, they're lucky enough they'll be getting 2 copies of this as a reprint. Trade-in is a normal spell card. The effect is to discard 1 level 8 monster to draw 2 cards. This was used for consistency issues in the original series of Blue Eyes cards, but is now no longer needed, especially since you can search for a lot of cards more quickly using the allocated support specific to them. Called by the Grave is a quick play spell card. Its effect is to target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do, until the end of the next turn, its effects are negated, as well as the activated effects and effects on the field of monsters with the same original name. This was a good way of disrupting your opponent if they play things like Ghost Ogre or Ash Blossom, as it prevents them from negating your card's abilities. The downside on this card is it only works if the opponent's card is in the graveyard, because there are certain cards, for example, one of the Raid Raptors, that when it sends itself, it basically sends itself to the banish pile in order to destroy your opponent's attacking monster if they're attacking into one of your Raid Raptor monsters. In that situation, a card such as this does not work. Infinite Impermanence is a normal trap card. Its effect is to target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn. Then if this card was set before activation and is on the field at resolution, for the rest of the turn all other spell or trap effects in this column are negated. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. The design on this card is that it incentivizes you in a couple of different ways. If you use it straight from your hand, then you can negate what your opponent has, but you need to have no cards. It's very useful if you're on, say, your first turn, but it also incentivizes you if you use it when it's set to your field, as it locks your opponent out of any cards in that zone for the rest of that turn. Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres is a light attribute dragon type link effect monster. It's got 0 attack and a link rating of 2. It requires 2 dragon monsters. Once per opponent's turn, if this card is in the extra monster zone, as a quick effect, you contribute 1 monster from your hand or field, return 1 face-up card on the field to the hand. If this card is tributed, special summon 1 dragon monster from your hand or deck, and make its attack or defense 0. You can only use this effect of Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres once per turn. This is a very decent effect for what you need, as it's able to do things very quickly, and it just needs 2 generic dragon monsters. Very simple to get out. It's used almost like a compulsory evacuation device to return your opponent's cards, and simply by tributing itself, you're able to then summon a dragon monster from your hand or deck. It does have to become 0 attack and defense, but if you're bringing out a Blue Eyes, that's simply used to send it back into the graveyard to then recover it so it has its full stat lineup, or to use it as part of a tribute for the ritual summon of your ritual monster, which is the Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. And this pretty much covers what's already been confirmed within the structure deck as of yet. I will be giving some more videos in relation to what I expect to see in the future, and an overview as to how I think the deck will perform later on. But as of now, I'm quite impressed with the latest round of support, and it's definitely something that the deck needs. I'd love to hear what your opinions are in the comment section down below. Make sure to like the video, it really helps support the channel, and it'd be great if you could consider subscribing. Thank you.